Yeah, it might look like just a humble, lovable 12-song full-length LP dedicated to the fine art of professional wrestling. But it's much more than that. No, it's quite a bit more than merely a vinyl LP. This is going to be a real scrapbook of autographs by the time I'm done with it. As you can see, some work has already begun on this project. A lot of it completed, or I should say, continued this past weekend with the mighty Anti-Scene and me, the bass player for said band, Malcolm Tent, bringing you this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. Yes! Good to be here, back in the saddle, or in the folding chair, such as the case may be. I'm going to do my standard routine here for those of you watching live on the Facebook, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Gonna lean in real close and cuddly here to the camera so I can lean over and take a look at the monitor and make sure that I am indeed going out live, and so that I can see the comments as they roll in live. I see that Bill Garabrandt is tuned in. Hello, Bill. Bill's first one in the house tonight. Usually it's, we got Harry the cat. This is happening real fast and furious. Bill's first one in the house. Usually Alan Versapellis is the first one. Haven't seen Alan yet, but Bill's there. Harry is now here. Harry is officially the second dude in the house, making his usual camera hogging appearance here on Tent Talks Tunes. I see that I am indeed going out live, and in theory I'll be able to see your comments as they roll in. So yeah, we just saw the teaser at the beginning of the show. The most recent Anti-Scene LP, Falls Count Anywhere, an album of songs about professional wrestling. We got an introduction from the Great Pogo in Japan. We have a song called Exploding Barbed Wire Deathmatch. We got one about Cactus Jack. We got one about Terry Funk. We got one about the Great Muta and all the mysterious Japanese wrestlers who could expel the mysterious green mist, blinding their opponents and winning the match. We've got a song in tribute to the bad guys, because as you can see, we are the bad guys of rock and roll, called I'm a Babyface Killer. A song in tribute to Bruiser Brody about the man who murdered him, entitled Invader 1 Must Die. Hasn't happened yet, but we're rooting for it. A tribute to the Great Junkyard Dog, a song called Thump. And on the B-side, we've got a tribute to George South, entitled The Ballad of the Bootleg Preacher. A tribute to Abdullah the Butcher, Dear Abby. A song written by the professional wrestler Beauregard called Testify. A song in tribute to Sabu, the human highlight reel. A song about the mysterious masked men of professional wrestling called From Parts Unknown, and a cover of the Freebirds theme song entitled Bad Street, USA. There it is. And with all that great professional wrestling reference on it, and all those names being checked, it is inevitable that one would at least try to get some signatures, autographs, from the people who we're singing and playing about. And if you see very carefully, I have two on this front cover right now. A real gem in my crown of autographs from Mr. Abdullah Butcher himself. And another superfine signature from the great George South. That man has been in the professional wrestling game for many, many, many years. He is known as Ric Flair's favorite opponent. He has walked the walk, he has talked the talk, and he has signed my album cover. So unfortunately, it's too late to get a lot of signatures from some of the people on here, but I'm hoping to get one signature from Mick Foley, a.k.a. Cactus Jack. And then, of course, signatures from we, the people who constitute Anti-Scene, and the Destructo Divas, and I should get Marla V and Mondo Braswell to sign it, because Marla V plays guitar on this version of Testify. Mondo Braswell of Taped Fist and the Anti-Scene merch table does some backing vocals. Yes, this is a real, genuine all-star product, which I am very, very proud of. very happy to be a part of. And yeah, I'm also a fanboy, so I get the autographs. And I got that signed by George South this past weekend. Anti-Scene doing not one, but two solid, rock solid nights of fabulous entertainment. We played Wilmington, North Carolina, and we played Charlotte, North Carolina. Bim bam, 1-2, audience over and out. Great nights, both of them. We had the Tennessee Weeper, Kelsey Ray Copeland, opening for us each night. And I got to tell you, the crowds loved them. Loved M, loved her. Crowds loved her, especially in Charlotte. Man, she pops the crowd in Charlotte. It was great. Opening, we had Simis in Wilmington. Very tasty and very loud country western music, like traditional, I would even say pre-Nashville country music. Nothing pop or super duper commercial about what they were laying down. It was good. It was real good. Same for Jason Moss and the Hosses, who opened up for us in Charlotte. No frills, knock down, drag out, kick you in the teeth, country music, the way it's supposed to be played on a sawdust floor and not in some star attraction like Dollywood. Sorry, that doesn't count. It's got to be dirty, nitty, gritty, and low down if you're going to share the stage with us, the boys from Brutalsville. Speaking of which, I just dropped my George South book. Ugh. It just slipped right off of my lap and bent the front cover and bent the page, including the page that George South was kind enough to sign for me at the Charlotte show. I collect wrestling books, wrestling autobiographies in particular, and someone like George South has a very interesting and unique perspective on the professional wrestling industry. You've heard all of the interviews from all of the big names and the big stars. You already know what they have to say. You know what Dusty Rhodes had to say and what Ric Flair has to say, and you know what Hulk Hogan, if you even consider him to be a wrestler, what he has to say. But these guys, the ones who are out there quite often losing to the big stars and working the independent cards and having and owning their own promotions, these guys have a perspective that is very far from the obvious perspective. And I love reading their stories and reading their tales. So I'm getting ready to feast my eyes on this book by Mr. Number One, George South, because you know he's got something interesting to say. And I'm very excited about it. Hey, we got Ray Gelman from Tucson, Arizona, making a long overdue reappearance here as a viewer on Tint Talks Tunes. Everybody say hey to Ray. Good to have you here. We're still thinking about taking a trip out there to visit you in Tucson, so put it on your calendar as to be determined. Indefinite, but it's going to happen. George South, I'm pretty sure he's the guy who's responsible for big-time wrestling here in North Carolina, and I had him autograph a DVD of one of his cards. He was on there wrestling Larry the Scufflin' Hillbilly, but you also had... hey, look who's on this card. Barry Windham, Ron Simmons, Jimmy Valiant, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the Rock and Roll Express. These are the people that George South runs with. And you can't be a lightweight. You got to hold your own with people like that. And George South has been doing that for many, 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 many years. So a big salute and a deep gulp from my jug of hickory tap to Mr. George South, Mr. Number One. Got up on stage, laid down a rap. I was scared to death, and I was behind him. Whew, heavy stuff. Also got some of the fun things that there are to have at a gig. You know, some set lists. Here is a Mark Simis set list. It's not one, but 2 pages deep with notations from band members. I love that kind of stuff. I love the personal touches. Anti-Scene set lists, of course. I was able to grab 2, although all the other ones got snagged very quickly both nights. These somehow got left behind. I've learned the trick is to always go to the drum set and grab the set list from there, because those usually don't go in the set list grabbing frenzy. So that's kind of like my secret stash, and I just gave away my secret, but I reserve the right to grab Barry's set lists at the end of each night if someone else doesn't already grab them. And yeah, it was a good fun, good night, good days, good weekends, fine traveling with the band. And you know what? We're going to do some more of that again in January. Oh, yes. We are so not done. Just because the year is over and the performing schedule for the end of the year is done, 2026 is right around the corner. If you stumble on the curb, you're going to bang your head on it. It is dangerously close. Speaking of dangerously close, a man who's not dangerously close but still dangerous, Mr. Dylan Guttersnipe, weighing in from the great country of New Zealand. Hello, Dylan. Good to have you on board. Nice to see that you're able to tune in to Tent Talks Tunes bestially early in the morning or bestially late at night. Whatever time it is where you are, it's quite different from where I am. So salute for making the effort to stay awake and listen to my ramblings and rumblings and rantings and ravings. So yeah, check it out. Oh my God. 2-day event in Georgia, the town of, is it Springdale? I better drop my dollar store cheaters so I can see. Yes, Riverdale, Georgia. Did I say something earlier about Mr. Abdullah the Butcher? Well, guess what? There is a 2-day gala birthday party. Abdullah the Butcher is having his 85th birthday party. The first night is a question and answer session with the man himself, a very rare occasion here in the US of A. Abdullah the Butcher's official persona when he was a wrestler was that he was the madman from Sudan. If he knew any languages at all, they weren't English. I remember very well seeing Abdullah in Florida almost 50 years ago when I was a kid, and his manager was Buddy Colt, one of the all-time great heels of professional wrestling. But Buddy Colt had been injured in a plane crash, so he couldn't wrestle in the ring anymore. He ended up managing some real heavy-duty bad guy wrestlers, such as the Assassin, and of course Abdullah the Butcher. And I remember Abdullah being absolutely insane, running rampant over some poor guy in the ring, and Buddy Colt saying, "Molly, Abdullah, Molly, Molly," trying to calm him down. But no matter how much Buddy Colt said, "Molly, Abdullah, Molly," Abdullah the Butcher would not calm down until he had carved his opponent into little tiny chunks, maybe eaten some raw chicken, run his face all over the ropes, and just generally made complete and utter mayhem out of the proceedings at the Sportatorium in Tampa, Florida, where they shot the TV every week for Championship Wrestling from Florida. That was some really heavy-duty stuff. So that was the angle. Abdullah the Butcher did not speak. And so to actually have a chance to sit down with him and ask him questions and get answers from him, pretty cool, pretty cool. You know what else is pretty cool? The next night, we, the people, who I mentioned before, Anti-Scene, the creators of Falls Count Everywhere, are playing his birthday party. Yes, it's Anti-Scene. The In Da Groove Band and Windsor, is that Windsor Jones? I printed this thing out 30 seconds before going on air, so I haven't studied it very carefully. Windsor Jones, In Da Groove Band, and Anti-Scene. Yes. Three excellent live musical acts, each one completely different from the other. That's what makes a good night of entertainment. And it's all in honor of Abdullah the Butcher, 85 years old. So y'all might want to pursue getting a ticket, because I can truthfully say that this is an event that will not happen again. Abdullah the Butcher is still very much alive and kicking, but he's only going to be 85 years old once. So when I grab this one by the horns and wrestle it to the ground, you will regret it if you miss it. I'm going to be there, hopefully for both nights. I don't know if we're doing both nights, but the second night, for sure. Another great big swig from the jug of Hickory Tap in honor of Abdullah the Butcher. And Queen Malika, who is his manager, and she's a great woman. I'm very much looking forward to that. It's going to be really cool. I'm also looking forward to January 2nd, in which I am playing a rare solo acoustic gig. Yes, 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 yes. Before I joined Anti-Scene as the full-time thumper of the Thunder Lumba, which I guess I should say I was the thumper of the Thunder Lumba, and if you speak proper English, the thumper of the Thunder Lumber, I had a benchmark of playing about 60 acoustic shows a year. Joining Anti-Scene means I play a lot of Anti-Scene shows, and I've ramped down the acoustic activity quite a bit. But I ain't out of the game. I ain't retired. I've just got a different focus. And so when my pal Mike Dietz, bass player for They Hate Us, a band which, still around, still on a hiatus, but still around. I play guitar for They Hate Us. Mike Dietz plays bass. Mike Dietz has a band called RBNX, and they are on tour, and they're playing at the Rooster in Gastonia. January 2nd, 2026. It's going to be them, it's going to be me, it's going to be Negative Racks, and it's going to be a band who I like an awful lot, the Van Huskins, Charlotte's Proudest. That is a real quadruple header if there ever was one. And what's really cool about the Rooster is that it is all ages. It is an all ages gig. I love playing all ages shows. I love that youthful energy. Show starts at 7 p.m., $10 in advance, 15 at the door. January 2nd, the Rooster, Gastonia, me, RBNX, Van Huskins, and Negative Racks. 2 events you really, really should not miss. You don't want to be benighted your entire life. You want to be in the swing and in the swim. Oh, yeah. That's the bulletin board. Mailbox. Nothing to report mailbox-wise. It's been a very quiet week for my mailbox. P.O. Box 173, Newton, North Carolina, 28658. So I got no mail to show ya. For better or worse, I got no mail to show ya. We'll be working on that situation in the immediate future. So now that means we get to do some Tent Talks tunings. We are going to get right down to the vegan meat of the matter, the synthetic cheese and crackers of it, if you will. This is what we used to call, what we still do call, but used to be referred to in common parlance as a brick of cassettes. Can you hear it? You hear those cassettes rattling around in there? This is a sound that's been with me for the vast majority of my life. You know, I was first introduced to cassettes. Well, actually, if you want to know the whole story, my first introduction to rock and roll as a medium that I could own was cassette. Yes, indeed he do. My father was a total tech head. He was the guy who had to have the latest hi-fi stereo gadgets as they came out. So he always had the newest turntable, the newest FM AM receiver. He bought one of the first ever, not even VCR, but VTRs, video tape recorders that came out. This is before Beta and VHS were real forces on the marketplace. He bought a VTR when it first came out. And he bought one of the first consumer home cassette decks when it came out. But even before that, when I was probably around 7 years old, he bought me a little tiny portable cassette player. It was from Sears. It was about the size of this brick of tapes, maybe a little bit taller. And it had one little speaker and a door that you would open, pop the tape in. You would slide over the switch so it clicked into place, and when it clicked into place, the tape would play. And there was a headphone jack on the side of it, but the headphone jack was actually an earphone, a single monophonic white plastic earphone that you stuck into one ear if you wanted to listen to a cassette. Otherwise, you would take out the plug and you could listen to the cassette on the itty-bitty little tiny speaker that was on it. That was pretty cool. That was real cutting-edge stuff. You know, I knew what records were and I knew what 8-tracks were, but this cassette thing was a whole new thermos full of minnows. And so along with the cassette player, my father gave me 2 cassettes, Led Zeppelin 1 and Led Zeppelin 2. And kind of what I said before, I already knew about rock and roll, and I knew about music because my father had a very good record collection, and of course the radio was always on in the house. But these were the first 2 pieces of actual rock and roll music that I owned, that were mine. And, you know, I didn't know who Led Zeppelin were. I don't know what possessed my father to buy me the first 2 Led Zeppelin records on cassette and give them to me, because he didn't have any Led Zeppelin records. I never heard Led Zeppelin played in the house, ever, except for the 2 cassettes that he gave me. He just gave these albums to me clear out of the blue. And, you know, to this day, when I listen to those Led Zeppelin records, they still sound a little bit weird to me, because I grew up with them I grew up with them in mono, playing over a little tiny speaker, this little itty bitty earphone. That's how I always heard those first 2 Led Zeppelin records. So it's still kind of odd to hear like full-blown stereo at a good, healthy volume. It actually doesn't sound right to me. It really sounds right to me only if I ever were to again hear those Led Zeppelin records on a small little bitty portable cassette player. But that was my entree into cassettes. And as mentioned before, excuse me while I drink this stuff. My father was one of the first guys to go out and buy a home cassette deck. And when he bought that cassette deck, he also went out and bought a couple of blank cassette tapes. TDK brand SA90 tapes, which was, of course, the best you could get. Blank tapes, 90 minutes, chromium dioxide. They cost $4.98 each. And you're talking, you know, if I recall correctly, $1977. So $4.98, that was a lot. You got to remember, a comic book only cost 25 cents back then. So you can sort of do the math. Candy bar cost a quarter. 10 balls of pinball at the local arcade cost a quarter. So a cassette cost $4.98. Very expensive outlay. But the thing was, you could actually record. See, this is kind of a new concept. You could take this cassette deck and hook it up to the record player or the radio, press the record button, and it would record the music onto the tape. And you could go back and play it again. This is a real novel concept. You could make a tape that had any kind of music that you wanted on it, from a record or the radio. The cassette deck also had a couple of microphone inputs. You could talk into it and record your own voice. If you played an instrument, you could play the instrument and record the instrument. This is really mind-boggling stuff to a young lad who had never been exposed to that technology before. And I remember we had those 2 TDK SA90 tapes, and we just recorded anything and everything and recorded over them over and over and over again just for the sheer novelty of it. I'm sure we wore those tapes out after time. I'd record my favorite songs off the radio. I'd record stuff off of the TV using one of the microphones. I would aim it at the speaker on the TV and record television shows, musical performances, whatever. It's just amazing that you could do this. I was absolutely gobsmacked by the possibilities of this, that you could document and preserve these sounds forever and listen to them whenever you wanted. You could say it triggered something in me. Oh yes, it was a trigger. So that's how I got the bug. Just as something as simple as cassette technology with a home cassette deck hooked up to a radio or a record player or a microphone for that matter. So I was all in. And of course, as time went on, one thing that, one of the endearing traits that my father had was that whenever he upgraded his stereo system, which was fairly often, he would pass the old one down to me. So as time went on, I eventually inherited his old record player, his old hi-fi stereo receiver, his old cassette deck. So I had all this stuff in my room, and I could use it to my heart's content. You know, I could save up my allowance money and my lawn mowing money and, you know, buy blank cassettes or records or whatever. But with the cassettes, I could make mixtapes off the radio. I mean, it was fantastic. So I've always been into the concept of recording stuff using the available technology at one's fingertips. Fast forward years later, I'm in bands, I'm going to shows, my recording obsession continues unabated. And the technology continues to evolve, and my love of recording continues to evolve along with it. And my technique continues to evolve. And I've already done an entire Tent Talks Tunes episode on this. If you go to my YouTube channel and take a look, you will be able to find, I'm sure, I don't know what search words to use, but you can find the episode where I talk all about my career as a recordist in the field. It's an enduring obsession that lasts to this very day. I record every show I play and every band I see. And I've got a vast library of live recordings. And what triggered, to use that word again, this whole thing was that I was digitizing some stuff I recorded on tape. Because not too very long ago, TPOS recording artist Pissy Chrissy and I went on a double date to go see, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you who we went to go see. I'm sure you can guess. My magnificent obsessions are sort of a topic here on Tent Talks Tunes this week. You could probably guess what band I would go on a hot date with a hot chick to go see would be. You can guess. But I'm going to tell you anyway because I just love to say the word. Devo. Yes, D-E-V-O from O-H-I-O. We went to go see Devo. Currently, in the touring edition of Devo is a guy named Josh Hager. Josh is the utility man of Devo. He plays rhythm guitar, keyboards. I don't think they've done anything in the studio with the current lineup, but Josh Hager on stage takes the place of Bob Two, who unfortunately is no longer with us. So he's the rhythm guitarist and keyboardist of Devo. A long time ago, back in 1996, he had a band from Boston called the Elevator Drops. And I saw the Elevator Drops performing at the local rock club in Danbury, Connecticut, where I lived, called Tuxedo Junction. As usual, I was taping, and so I had this tape of the Elevator Drops sitting in this box for the better part of 30 years, 29 to be exact. And this sort of answers the question that I'm asked sometimes. Tent, you old creep, what do you do with all these shows you record? What do you do with them? Well, the answer is, I wait for opportunity. Yes, I wait for opportunity. And the opportunity in this case was to give Josh Hager, currently of Devo, formerly of the Elevator Drops, a recording I made of his band back in 1996. So, I dragged out the cassette. Let's see if I can find the actual cassette here. This is a very funny thing. At one time, cassette boxes were kind of in short supply, so I had to make my own cassette box out of cardboard. I took cardboard boxes, cut them to size, taped them together, and made a form-fitting cassette box to hold the recordings from this time and this place. I made it just a little bit too tight, though, so I gotta take a drastic measure here. So I fished out the tape, this being one of them, and started digitizing, and in order to do it efficiently, I had to digitize the entire tape. One of the total bugaboos of my existence back in the cassette days was that cassettes were not quite as expensive as they were in the 70s when my father bought those first couple of TDK SAs. By the time that I was an active taper, a good quality blank, and my brand of choice was Maxell XL2S for live recording. These things still cost, if I remember correctly, $3 and change each. And we're talking mid-90s dollars. The tapes came in bricks of 10. So if you want to get 10 blank tapes, which I had to do because I was burning through them an awful lot, I was laying it out like $34, $35 for a box of tapes. Remember, $1996. $35 then was a lot more than $35 now is. I can assure you of that. And maybe some of my fellow old-timers will give me a thumbs up on that or a heart or an amen. Because if you were there and you remember, you know what I'm talking about. Shiz adds up. Gets expensive. So between that and my natural inclination to be as thrifty and as efficient as possible, when I would record bands, I would fill every single cassette to the brim. I went for 100-minute tapes. 90 was the industry standard, but 100 was ideal for taping live because you got that extra 5 minutes aside, which is quite often the make or break between getting a complete recording of a song before the tape ran out. And the 10 minutes per tape adds up an awful lot. So I would record every band live, but if the band played, like, say, 33 minutes, I would have 17 minutes of blank tape on one side. And so I would record the next band, which might have been a couple weeks or days or whatever, even months later, fill up the rest of that side, flip it, record as much as I could on the other side, and still have more blank tape to use. And sometimes tapes would get misplaced or put aside for some reason or another. Kind of convoluted. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense nowadays, but back then when the limitations of cassette were very obvious, I ended up with all these tapes that had, this one, for example, has, well, this one's pretty easy. This one's got 1, 2, 3 different bands from 2 different concerts. One, April 7th, 96. The other 3 from April 28th, 96. And the show from April 28th is continued from this tape onto another tape. And it just goes on like that. And I have hundreds of these things with all of these shows broken up between multiple tapes. It was extremely rare that a band played the exact amount of time that I had in blank tape. Extremely rare to start it with a fresh 100-minute tape and fill it perfectly with 100 minutes worth of music on a given night. It rarely happened. So between the cost of the tapes and the inefficiency of the tape length versus the set lengths, I have a giant mess. Huge mess. Completely disorganized. Luckily, with digital technology, it's easy to fix that. Oh yes, it's easy to fix that. So, in grabbing the cassette that I had of the Elevator Drops, which was from March 28th of 1996, I was able to digitize that set. And this is what was on this tape. The complete Elevator Drops show, a really cool Danbury group called Atlas, who opened the show. What was on there before, a group called Eventide, recorded 10 days prior. And that's what's on that tape. This had part 1 of the Elevator Drops show. Then I got to the other tape. Are you guys getting confused yet? Do you see what I have been having to deal with all these years with cassettes? Then I had part 2 of the set on another tape, which is here somewhere. Bear with me, guys. This is a rare glimpse into my existence as a long-suffering archivist. Whatever. I got the second part of the show on another tape, digitized it, and for the first time ever, I've got both halves of the Elevator Drops show together on one hard drive. And I went through a few of these tapes and did the exact same thing. I pieced together all these shows that were broken up over different tapes and got them all together, dated them accordingly. So now they are in true chronological order on my hard drive. And this is going to take probably another 62 or 63 years to get done at the rate I'm going. But it is getting done. And one of the great side benefits and joys of this is I'm getting to listen to a lot of music I have not heard in almost 30 years. A lot of these tapes I haven't listened to since the day I recorded them. But now the time is right. And I'm kind of waxing a little bit nostalgic as I'm going through these tapes. This entire box, start date on the shows here was February 10th, 1996. And the end date was April 13th, 1996. And I recorded a lot of Danbury bands. Now, my compadre John Murray from Danbury wants to know which drummers was with Atlas at the time. You know, that is a very good question. I don't know. I took a lot of notes about these things, but I didn't write down things like band members, you know? It's just like, it never even occurred to me to do so. Probably because at the time I figured, oh, I'll always remember that. I'll never forget who was in Atlas this night. Well, I forgot. And my ear is not keen enough to identify who's who. And I didn't hear Sean Sheridan of Atlas make any band introductions. So I don't know. John Murray, were you in the band in 1996 at that time? Because if you were, it's probably you. Someone's got to tell me. Matt Galvin chimes in and says, Scott English. Okay, that sounds about right. Scott English. Thank you, Matt. Scott English, last I checked, was still on the dreaded Facebook. So if anybody wants to tag Scott, I don't know if Scott is able to be tagged. He'd probably enjoy seeing and hearing this. Atlas was a really good band. I don't like to use the word alternative rock because it's just like so generic and pointless, but I called them please forgive me, I'm going to rephrase it, a pop power band. They had pop hooks and a lot of power and really good songwriting. And one of literally 2 or 3 million bands on this planet who are severely underrepresented by their recorded output. They put out a couple of EPs, probably a demo or two, but you know for a fact that there's a lot of stuff they recorded that never got properly recorded in the studio, which is why it's important to have these live shows documented, because this is history. This is a reality that did exist at one time. People cared about it. People liked it. People went out to see these bands, plunked down their hard-earned money to buy the records and the demos. So it's got to be preserved. And that really is my underlying raison d'etre for this whole thing, is preserving history and also getting nostalgic. So let's see, who played here? April 7th, 1996. The Bunny Brains, a band that I founded and abandoned. Even though I quit working with them in 1993, even as late as April of 96, I would go see them on occasion. And of course, record them. This was the Bunny Brains, I think, last ever Easter pageant at TK's in Danbury. Might have even been the last ever show of original music at TK's. Because I remember that a certain member of the Bunny Brains this night, who was extremely intoxicated, took his bass guitar and swung it like an axe at one of the beer signs hanging from the ceiling and completely destroyed it. And TK himself was there. And I remember him very calmly walking over to the remnants of the sign, which had come down from the ceiling, cleaning the whole mess up. He didn't fuss. He didn't fume. He didn't fight. He didn't say a word. But as I recall, there were no more live bands at TK's after that. Maybe coincidence, maybe design. That's how I remember it going down. Also, on this tape, see, I can't even read my handwriting. I have this bad habit of writing black on black with these things, or in this case, purple paint on black. Very hard to read. So, okay, what else is on there is at this club called Sub-Zero in Danbury, which did not last very long, but they had some really good shows where they were around. A band called Fault Line and Brookfield, Connecticut's very own straight edge champions, Follow Through. Oh, yes. Fault Line and Follow Through. I remember that Follow Through were definitely the torchbearers for straight edge for a long time in Connecticut, along with Fast Break and, I don't recall exactly who else. I'm sure Fault Line was probably of that same school. But they played Sub-Zero on April 28th, 1996. And that's the beauty of it. You've got the pure noise, skronk, improv mayhem of the Bunny Brains on the same tape as some classic 90s Connecticut straight edge. Vive la différence. That's what I say. Let's see here. Comments are rolling in. I see John Murray, who was there at the time. Tom, a.k.a. TK, did a lot for the music scene in Danbury between that and the Ale House. He was really good to the Danbury scene. He certainly was. And his restaurant is still there to this day. Pretty cool. Probably the longest lasting restaurant ever in that location. So he's got to be doing something right. What else have we got here on this tape? Oh, here's a funny one. I said pop power. How about pop punk? How about No FX? Live at Danbury, Connecticut's own Tuxedo Junction. March 1st, 1996. Part 2 of that show is on this one. I never cared about No FX one way or another. I never disliked them. I just remember I sold an awful lot of their records when I had my record store. I sold many, many, many No FX records at the time. So it was a really big deal when they came to Danbury. And I do recall a pretty packed house. Don't know if they sold that joint out, but there were a lot of people there. I think the capacity at Tuxedo Junctions was 500 or 600. And there were a lot of people there for No FX. And it was a fun show. Totally fun show. Part 2 of that one, and then March 21st, part 2 of a show by Too Much Joy. Now, Too Much Joy made a lot of hay in the mid-90s. They were quite popular. And one thing that I really give Too Much Joy a lot of props for, if I have my story correctly, if anybody out there remembers Two Live Crew, can I see some hands? Can I see some thumbs ups? Can I see some hearts? If people remember Two Live Crew. Two Live Crew got into some real hot water in my former home of South Florida, which I've often said is a great place to be from. They got into a lot of hot water because of obscenity in Broward County. I mean, like a lot of hot water. Too Much Joy, who I think you could describe accurately as being skinny, smart-ass white boys, but who are also very clever and very intelligent with their smart-assedness. They volunteered to play Broward County, Florida, doing Two Live Crew's entire show verbatim, with all of the horrific obscenity and all of the disgusting offensiveness. Because Two Live Crew were like banned, blacklisted, screwed with left, right, and center. Two White Crew said, well, Two Much Joy was like, all right, let's see what happens if we, the skinny, smart-ass white boys, come down and do the show. What'll happen then? And I don't know if that show ever happened. I really hope it did. But I thought that was brilliant. That was genius for them to pick up the mantle like that and try to run with it. So much respect to Too Much Joy. And they were a lot of fun that night, as I recall. They played a long-ass set, but they were good. They were quite entertaining. And then the third show on this tape is the Dam Builders. Yes, mentioned that before. The Dam Builders from March 28th. Dam Builders were a really good alt-rock band, for lack of a better term. Kind of in the same vein as Thinking Fellers' Union Local 282. Don't know who else I would compare them to. They were great. And I was very happy to be rolling tape that night. Dave Stennett knows. He's tuning in, and he knows some of those Two Live Crew lyrics. Imagine Too Much Joy doing the same lyrics. I'd probably pop a gut laughing. What else is on these tapes? This is like a real time capsule here. All right, here's one. February 10th, 1996. Trying to read what I got here. Here's a band, Explodee. Part 2 of a show by Explodee. Who was Explodee? Well, if you went by their skimpy recorded output, which is one 7-inch single, which was a giveaway with a magazine called Brushback in 1996, you would think they were one-hit wonders. But Explodee was actually the brainchild of a guy named Greg Vegas. Greg Vegas was the guitar player, and from what I learned, listening to his band Explodee, probably the principal writer of the music in Danbury's very own band that should have been king, Monsterland. Yes. Excuse me. Monsterland was the one Danbury band that actually had a shot at the gold ring in those halcyon days of alternative rock. And when the term Next Seattle was being bandied about very freely in them days. Monsterland were the ones. They had the major label contract, they had the lawyer, they had the booking agent, they had everything lined up in place and ready to go. The only thing that they did not have was the ability to overcome their irreconcilable differences. And the career of Monsterland went pretty much over the course of one gig in New York City. I might have told that entire story on a past episode of Tent Talks Tunes. Anyway, after Monsterland shook itself apart, Greg Vegas, who in typical fashion of a band who signs a major label recording contract, was still under contract to the label. Because that's what the labels do. They sign the band individually and collectively. So in case the band shakes itself apart, the label can still get some kind of return from their investment from the individual members. So I don't know all the details. I was not privy to any discussions or business talk or anything like that, but I do remember very clearly that Greg Vegas attempted to pick up the pieces with a band called Explodee. And they released that one single, and that's it. That's the only official documentation of Explodee. But guess what? I have, I think, about a 45-minute concert of theirs preserved on tape. So if there were 2 or 3 songs in that 7-inch EP, there's plenty more that never got recorded, or at least never released, on this tape. And for historians and aficionados of alternative rock, I think it's very cool that the stuff actually exists. I had fun listening to it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Really good stuff. And it's not lost forever. What else have we got? Here's a tape. A rare tape recorded at one venue over the course of one night. Sub-Zero, the aforementioned venue in Danbury. February 24th, 1996. Part 1. Who played that night? This was like a real Connecticut showpiece. Ray Gelman, I hope you're watching still. Murray Gelman, I hope you're watching still. Because this night, at the Ground Zero, at the Sub-Zero in Danbury, we had Kitty Badass, Fudge Daddy-O's, The Injections, Ugly Truth, and part 1 of an epic performance by The Pissed. This is the state of the art of Connecticut punk rock in 1996. All in one night. That was one heck of a night, let me tell you. Kitty Badass, a mostly female punk rock band from Norwalk. They could write, they could sing, they had vocal harmonies, they had high energy. Loved them. They were so good. Fudge Daddy-O's with the aforementioned Murray Gelman, the man of a million bands. That was one of them. The Injections, gut bucket, no nonsense, drunk punk from the Norwalk area. Ugly Truth, who I think were from Waterbury. And of course, The Pissed from Waterbury. And Mike Lester says, hello from Hong Kong. Hello, Mike. We got people from New Zealand and Hong Kong. on board with us tonight for Tent Talks Tunes. All we need now is Pear from Sweden, and we'll have some real internationalism going on. Salute. Hello, Dave Stennett. Again. Here's part 2 of that show at the Sub-Zero, February 24th. That's the rest of the show by the Pissed. And that's the end of it. And after that, we've got a show from Tuxedo Junction, March 21st, 1996, with 2 Skinny Jays. Another bunch of smart-ass skinny white boys doing kind of a Red Hot Chili Peppers funk thing. Not really my bag of tea, but they were entertaining. They had ashtrays for sale at their merch table. I remember that. Red, white, and blue ashtrays. And the Too Much Joy show that we saw part 2 of earlier. And John Murray is chiming in with some very good biographical information about some of these bands. You guys need to read his comments. He's filling in a lot of blanks here and shading some gray areas. Thank you, John Murray, for your contributions to Tent Talks Tunes. Here's the rest of that show from Tuxedo Junction, March 1st. We know that NoFX were the headliner. Who opened up? The Lunachicks. Lunachicks opened up for NoFX that night, and I remember they rocked. Lunachicks kicked ass this night. They made a fan of me this night. Hey, and Pear from Sweden is here. Salute. So yeah, the Lunachicks and NoFX. My somewhat dim view of NoFX notwithstanding, Lunachicks alone were worth the price of admission. And kind of ironic that years later I'd end up working with a guy named Dino Sex. Dino being the erstwhile drummer for not only the Murder Junkies, but also for They Hate Us, featuring my pal Mike Dietz, who I'm sharing the stage with on January 2nd in Gastonia. The web of interconnections gets deeper and more tangled. The Lunachicks, if you ask Dino Sex, will tell you, are married to Dino Sex. To elaborate further would be to plumb the depths of the absurd going into the insane. But if you look up Dino Sex, aka Dino the Naked Drummer, I'm sure you'll be able to find the entire story. And considering how hard the Lunachicks rocked that night, I don't blame him for wanting to marry the entire group. I think it was the only right decision to make. What do we got here? It seems like most of the stuff I recorded was either at Tuxedo Junction or Sub-Zero at this time. Here's a gig recorded at a coffee house called Dr. Java in Bethel, Connecticut. Bethel is the home of Connecticut. I'm going to say Connecticut's finest coffee house. I'm a little bit of a partisan. I'm a little bit, partial to my part of the state. Molten Java from Bethel, Connecticut has been there for years and years and years. Wendy, who runs it, is one of the best people on the face of the earth. Good beverages. I'm a tea drinker, and I've had quite a few delicious cups of vanilla rooibos at Molten Java. They blend their own coffee. They roast their own coffee. They've always been completely supportive of the musicians and artists in the Danbury area. I've played some of my best shows at Molten Java. The forerunner to Molten Java was called Dr. Java. Dr. Java was also on Greenwood Avenue in Bethel, and they had live acts. And I recorded some stuff there at Dr. Java, who played Dr. Java on the night of April 12th, 1996. That would be, well, it's not GNU Fuzz. That was Tuxedo Junction on March 31st. Wow, this is quite odd. Dr. Java's was host to a group called Penfold and also Static Press 19. Static Press 19 was the brainchild of a guy named Craig Colarusso. Craig was also a man of many bands, China Pig probably being first and foremost of them. I worked with him on a number of projects. And I got to be bloody dang honest and say that I don't remember what Static Press 19 was about. I don't remember them. I'm wondering if this was part of Craig Colarusso's 24-hour performance at Molten Java. He did a non-stop 24-hour live music performance at Dr. Java sometime around this time. And I wonder if that was under the name of Static Press 19. I remember very clearly going there when the show first began, catching the first, say, hour and a half or so of it, and going back 22 hours later and catching the last chunk of it. And, you know, it was just kind of surreal to think that I had gone to see them, like going to a regular show the night before, went home, wow, gravity, went home, you know, had a bite to eat, got a full night's sleep, woke up, had breakfast, went to work at Trash American Style, got dinner, went over to Molten Java, and they were still playing. You know, that was the very bizarre aspect of it. They hadn't stopped playing the entire time that I was just leading a normal life. They were still on that stage, still playing music. That was pretty heavy. And yes, Craig Colarusso is doing some exciting stuff right now. He's got an installation called Sun Boxes, which is based on solar power and rising and falling tones. Very much worth looking into. Craig Colarusso, Sun Boxes. Very, very cool stuff. So if I've got my history remembered correctly, Static Press 19 was a precursor to that with the long, flowing sound installation type of thing. Except Sun Boxes is based on machines that are solar powered, and Static Press 19 was live people with instruments. Cry, cry. What else was going on in the springtime of 1996 in Danbury? Well, here's another show from Sub-Zero. February 21st, 1996. Who was playing this fabled night? That flyer was not meant to stay up. It's a flyer for my show. I won't take no for an answer. I don't care if gravity doesn't want to cooperate. People need to know about what I got going on here. And I'm going to use this technology to make it known. This is live, kids. This is like really carrying on in the spirit of cable TV. If you guys are watching on the YouTube archive, and this looks pretty ramshackle and chaotic, well, it was, and it is forever now on my YouTube channel. Murray Gelman, did you hear about that bill I talked about earlier? You were prominent in it. February 21st, 1996. Oh my God, a group called Skin Candy, who are from New York City. Kind of like a post-hardcore New York band. They were really good. They rocked hard. Creature did. Those guys moved from Torrington to Danbury to be part of the Danbury scene. Kind of like moving from Hoquiam, Washington to Seattle, Washington. How's that for an analogy? Creature did. Great stuff. Loved them. And I guess the headliners that night were a band called Gaunt, who I remember selling a few records of at Trash American Style, but I don't remember the band specifically. Gaunt. And no program notes either. A lot of times I would write notes on the cassette boxes the night of the show, but I didn't write anything about Gaunt. I don't know why. We got a couple more here. 3 more, 4 more. Let's just go through them real quick. February 21st, that very same night, at Sub-Zero, Supernova. I guess they were the headliners. Supernova, really, yes, amazing surf rock played by guys in outer space suits. I remember a very elaborate stage show with lighted space suits and fog and weird guitars and cool-looking instruments. And, oh man, they were a lot of fun. Kind of like Man or Astroman. Same deal, but even more theatrical. And then back to Tuxedo Junction on the 21st. See how the shows are all broken up. Pumpernickel, Part 2, and Two Skinny Jays, Part 1. Pumpernickel and Two Skinny Jays. That's a weird mix, because Two Skinny Jays, like I mentioned before, were doing a whole funky kind of Beastie Boys thing. And Pumpernickel, as I recall, were very quiet, very pastoral, very, what I like to call low blood sugar music. Not an insult, it's not a put down, but just imagine if you had very low blood sugar music. If you're very low blood sugar, you're really hungry, you don't have a lot of strength to rock out, but you're going to play anyway. Very tasty. Todd Knapp. We got all the Connecticuts in here tonight. Todd Knapp is saying that he thinks Gaunt were from Columbus. That sounds about right. That sounds about right. And I do remember selling a pretty fair number of Gaunt records. So they must have been good. All right. Who else have we got here? Oh, this was a heck of a night. Oh, my gosh. Yes, I remember this. Do I have the date on this one? Also March 1st at Sub-Zero, Sabra Cadabra. This is what the height of alternative rock could do for a concert goer. Because as they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. During this magic moment in history, when it was cool to be in a band and cool to go to shows, and there were venues all over the place, I could go to Tuxedo Junction and see the Lunatics and NoFX. And then after that show, go over to Sub-Zero and catch Sabra Cadabra, the Black Sabbath tribute band. Yes. 3 bands, 2 venues, all within a couple blocks of each other. And I had the tape recorder going the whole time. I don't remember if these guys were any good or not. I kind of remember some guys trying to look like Black Sabbath. And they must have at least somewhat sounded like Black Sabbath. I'll have to go back and listen to it. But yeah, March 1st, 96. A lot of club hopping that night in downtown Danbury. You can't say that no more. And then, March 29th, at Sub-Zero, Killing Time. Seminal class of 88 New York hardcore band. Started out as Raw Deal and had a pretty good run for the roses under the name of Killing Time. Oh, yes. John Murray says, when was John Murray and Todd Knapp in a band together? You got to tell me something. To quote Jeff Clayton, you got to tell me something. Yeah, 4 venues in walking distance. Sub-Zero, Tuxedo Junction. I guess the Hat City Ale House was going on at that time. Maybe the Chicken Coop was going on at that time. Downtown Danbury, hotbed of alternative rock and weird music activity. What is this? A Food Not Bombs benefit. April 13th, 1996. Where was this? Another venue in downtown Danbury, the Harambee Youth Center, who were very friendly towards punk rockers. The Harambee on this night for a Food Not Bombs benefit had Ridiculum, Crack Rock, the Alcatholics. Let me tell you, the Alcatholics, one of the best band names ever. The Injections, yes. And I mentioned to you guys before, speaking of Murray Gell-Mann, the Fudge Daddy-O's. Yes, the Injections and the Fudge Daddy-O's at the Harambee Youth Center in downtown Danbury, April 13th, 1996. Murray Gell-Mann, even if you don't remember it, you were there. And I got the proof. And the last tape in this one brick, mind you, this is one brick. And as you can see by the numbering system, this is brick number 22 in my archive. And it's somewhat half-assed attempt at organizing the whole thing. 22 of these things, but the real number is more like 42. And this is only the one I grabbed for the purpose at hand, so that's a lot of damn tape. Last one in this brick. Can't read it. Cannot read my own handwriting. But here's a treat. An actual print ad from Tuxedo Junction in 96. Who is playing Tuxedo Junction in March of 96? The Dam Builders, who I mentioned earlier. What a great show that was. Belly Button, Wonderama, From Good Homes. That's what's on this tape. And GNU Fuzz, Newtown's finest GNU Fuzz, and Mighty Purple. They're on this tape. And then later on, Deicide played, Down by Law, and one of my favorite shows I've ever seen. I mentioned them before, but they played at Tuxedo Junction, Thinking Fellers Union, Local 282. Those guys were genuinely magical. They were one of those bands that just, they cast spells when they played. I loved them. And yes, I got the whole set on tape, so I feel really good. And yeah, that's what one brick of tapes, one brick in the wall from the Malcontent Field Unit Archive looks like. A big mess. But at least part of it is now in strict chronological order, digitized, level corrected, EQ'd, just ready for accessibility whenever it needs to be accessed. And I quite frankly look forward to the opportunity and the chance to digitize some more of this stuff so I can listen to it again and just get it in some kind of order. Should it happen again, I'll be happy to share the results with you guys, my frantic fans, my loyal listeners, and my vivacious viewers. As for me, I've sure enough done talked myself out. I am done. The larynx is raggedy, it's rough, and it's no longer ready. So I'm going to sign out. I'm going to recommend that if you're in a viewing mood and mode and you want to see a show very similar to mine, check out Break On Through, the Facebook vlog, whatever you call it, run by Jeff Clayton, the big boss man of Anti-Scene. He's on every other Tuesday, also at 7 p.m. He was on last night. He'll be on 2 Tuesdays from now. Same approach. I should say same basic idea, somewhat different approach. But we're just both music geeks and cultural nerds, and we love our music and we love our junk culture. So if you ain't heard nearly enough of me doing this stuff, you can get some from Jeff Clayton too. And if you just want to sit around and wait until next Wednesday to hear me do Tent Talks Tunes again, you're more than welcome to, because I do intend to be back in about 167 hours' time. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thanks for all the comments. I'll be scrolling through them later when I actually have the wherewithal to do so. I do intend to be back then. Until that time we meet again, this is Malcontent saying so long from the Tar Heel State.